What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Dungeon Master Experience. In this video, we're diving into the fantastic Dungeon Master Experience articles by Chris Perkins. He's one of the lead designers of Dungeons & Dragons. We'll explore his invaluable insights and advice to enhance your skills as a Dungeon Master and create unforgettable D&D experiences for your players. What's up, y'all? This article is called Mortem, and it's from May 19th, 2011. And this is actually the 14th article that I've done in this series so far. And if you'd like to listen to them all in order, I've put them all into a playlist. So you can just go to my channel, find the playlists, find the Dungeon Master Experience playlist, and just binge watch them all the way through. If that's something you want to do, of course. But anyway, let's get into this article. I can't really tell what it's about from the title, but let's find out together. Here we go. Wednesday night. This week's session kicks off with a quick recap of the previous week's game. The heroes assaulted the Black Candle, a stronghold of Vecna worshippers hidden in a demiplane that can only be accessed via a secret ritual. Fortunately, Xantham, Kurt Gould's gnome bard, had mastered the ritual. Unfortunately, the Vecnites, themselves masters of secret lore, were more than prepared for the party's arrival. The heroes quickly found themselves surrounded and fighting for their lives against evil wizards, assassins, cultists, shadow demons, and undead creatures that like to feast on healing surges. To make matters worse, the heroes had an unexpected run-in with an exarch of the Maimed Lord, who banished Xantham the Gnome Bard to the Nine Hells. So that sounds pretty epic. It seems like the party is transporting to demiplanes, getting party members banished to the Nine Hells, trying to fight Vecna cultists and other wizards and stuff like that. Seems like a good opener. Let's see where this goes. In a recent poll, y'all voted to decide which character in my Wednesday night game should die next. Oh, so that's where it's going. The votes were tallied, and Xantham the Gnome Bard won by a landslide. Perhaps it was fate, but even before we knew the final results of the poll, events of the campaign had already conspired against Xantham. Kurt Gould was forced to wait a whole week to find out whether Xantham would return from the Nine Hells in one piece. His anxiety only grew once the poll results were tallied. Fortunately for Kurt, I'm not the sort of dungeon master who kills characters solely based on poll results. Honestly, my players are quite capable of killing off their characters, and sometimes each other, without my help. That said, I have been known to torture my players' characters from time to time. Just ask Rodney Thompson. Many levels ago, the Wednesday night heroes faced a similar situation where they attacked an elemental weapons foundry and found themselves overwhelmed. The characters were knocked out, except for Andrew Finch's character, who fled, branded as enemies of the Dragovar Empire, and by branded, I mean literally scarred with scorching hot brands that marked them as criminals, and handed over to a ship full of privateers. And by privateers, I mean pirates. Prior to the ship's departure, Rodney's character Vargas had one of his eyes gouged out and replaced with a magical one. The bad guys planned to use Vargas as a mule to deliver this magic item to a one-eyed pirate warlord locked away in an island prison. In the course of the journey, with a little help from Andrew's character, the heroes managed to commandeer the ship and avoid incarceration. Yet, the pain and mutilation inflicted upon Vargas would be the beginning of a new arc for that character, one that would carry Vargas through many levels and even tiers of play. Rodney seized upon the opportunity, transforming Vargas into an Avenger dedicated to wiping out those who maimed him. The Eye not only gave Rodney a new magic item to play with, but also a new enemy to look forward to, the aforementioned Pirate Warlord, who was recently released from prison and, not surprisingly, wanted his magic eye back. A little pain goes a long way. Which brings us back to poor Xantham. After making Kurt wait a whole week to learn the ultimate fate of his character, I took him aside at the start of the session and told him that upon arriving in the Nine Hells, Xantham was taken prisoner by a coven of night hags, whereupon he became their favorite plaything. And we have a little comic on the right-hand side. It looks like a night hag, and she's saying, would you rather be a night hag plaything or a one-eyed pirate mule? I don't know, it's cool art. After 6 years of torture and abuse, this being a PG-rated blog, I'll spare you the horrific details, Xantham was returned to his companions at roughly the moment he was spirited away. Kurt was stunned, to say the least, but his horror turned to elation. I'd just given him a campaign's worth of role-playing material to work with. Xantham, the cheery sing-along gnome bard, would never be the same. Well, that sounds pretty fun. He basically took one of the party members and transported him to the Nine Hells and scarred him for life and put him right back to the exact moment when he left. It actually reminds me of an event that happened in the pretty early on in the Driz books. I'm not going to spoil it here because it's pretty epic, but the same kind of thing happened to one of the characters in those books. And yeah, it's all in good fun, and it does give a lot of springboards for role-playing. But let's keep on going. Let's see where this goes. Alas, Xantham died later in the session. Fortunately, he was carrying a potion of life, which another character poured down his throat in the nick of time. In what can only be described as a cruel twist of irony, we managed to make good on the poll results while also keeping Xantham in the game. But I call shenanigans. It's also worth noting that one of the Vek'nite assassins had a quiver stuffed with 7 crossbow bolts of slaying, 1 bolt for each character in the party. The Vek'nites had plenty of time to study the hero's weaknesses and craft these menacing magic items, so this didn't seem beyond the realm of reason. Here are the stats I created for these busted items, in case you're curious. And here we have a stat block for the Missile of Slaying. And it says, inscribed in supernal script upon the razor-sharp tip of this crimson-fletched arrow or crossbow bolt is the name of the creature it aims to kill. And it says it's worth 125,000 gold pieces. And under property it says, inscribed upon this missile is the name of a specific individual. If the missile hits the creature whose name is inscribed upon it, that creature drops to 0 hit points. If the creature doesn't die when reduced to 0 hit points, the creature must make a saving throw. If the save fails, the creature dies. Whether it hits or misses its intended target, the missile's magic is spent once the missile is shot. And I gotta say, that's a pretty nice magic item. Over the course of the evening, the assassin managed to fire off 6 of the 7 bolts before he was slain. Thanks to a couple of missed attacks, some successful saving throws, and another potion of life, no one died. At least, not for long. Ironically, the only bolt that wasn't shot was the one with Xantham's name on it. And we got a little comic of an archer pulling back a bowstring saying, "Here's your character development." And then on the other side of the panel, there's a warrior or some sort of character being pierced through the torso with an arrow. Lessons learned. Pain and death are part of the human condition, and until we experience them in some form or another, we cannot truly understand or appreciate what it means to be human. I don't have enough fingers and toes to count the number of books, comics, movies, and television series that use death and near-death experiences as catalysts for character development. In all forms of storytelling, pain and death fuel character development, and Dungeons & Dragons is all about character development. Without it, pain and death are largely meaningless. When I hear dungeon masters complain about the pointlessness of death in their D&D campaigns, due to the preponderance of raised dead rituals and other cheats, I wonder if maybe they're missing an important opportunity. On the other hand, I'm also told that 4th edition characters are hard to kill. I can accept that. It's particularly true if all they face week in, week out are encounters comparable to their level. For me, I like to give my player characters the full range, from easy to harrowing. While I don't believe it's the dungeon master's job to kill characters, I do get a morbid kick out of watching my players scour their character sheets in sweaty desperation, looking for that one half-forgotten power or magic item to save their bacon. I often plan sessions in which the characters might, depending on their choices and actions, find themselves fighting more than one encounter's worth of opponents at once. I run a deadly game of Dungeons & Dragons, and yet, more often than not, the heroes prevail. Desperation begets imagination, and when it comes to staying alive, my players can be very imaginative. To summarize, never underestimate the death-defying desperation of player characters. Pain and death can trigger great character development. Those of you who follow the Penny Arcade podcast know what I'm saying is true. The death of Eophel, Will Wheaton's character, at the end of the 3rd series, spawned an entire adventure built around his triumphant return. Ye gods, if you want to see character development at its finest, check out the PAX 2010 Celebrity Game podcast. When a character dies, it's either a momentous event or a momentary inconvenience, depending on the campaign. My goal as Dungeon Master is to remind players that even in a world with raised dead rituals, pain and death can still serve as fodder for good character development. Scars, nightmares, the thirst for vengeance, the undying enmity of the Raven Queen, these are the types of things that can haunt characters for a long time and make them more fun and interesting to play. So before you puncture the hearts of your player characters with arrows of slaying, try to remember that the goal isn't necessarily to kill them off, but rather to give them more reasons to live. Until the next encounter. Well, I thought that was a cool article. I do kind of feel like they copped down on the Xantham coming back with the potion of life situation, but that's just me. It is kind of funny how he says that 4th edition characters are hard to kill when now we're in the area of 5th edition and we're on the verge of 5.5 or 6th edition, whatever we're going to call it, coming up here in 2024. But characters in 5th edition are extremely hard to kill. And in 5.5 and 6th edition, I assume it's going to keep going that direction. It seems like we're leaning away from situations where bad luck and a bad roll of the dice can make you lose your character. That's a discussion for another time, I guess. But for example, in the early playtests of a 6th edition or 5.5, whatever they're calling this thing that comes out next year, 1D&D, in one of the early playtests, they actually said that monsters could not crit when you rolled a 20. Now, they reversed that decision, but that kind of shows you where their head's at. Yeah, they really don't want people to just lose their characters from a bad dice roll, that kind of thing. This is what it seems like. Of course, you can run your table however you want to run your table. I'm sure people run very meat grindery games of 5th edition, but it's just kind of interesting to see that trend. But anyway, that was cool. Thanks for sticking around. If you like this kind of video, like I said, I got them all on a playlist. And if you hit the like button, man, it's a simple click for you, but it helps my channel immensely to boost up these videos and get them in front of more eyes and ears. But anyway, see ya.